Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And the book that we're reading now, and we've been reading for quite some time, because it's a whole bunch of volumes and a whole bunch of pages and a whole bunch of verses, 18,000 to be exact, verses. And how long have we been reading? More than a year. Well, more than a year. And the Srimad-Bhagavatam, we were just talking to our groups of guests and new devotees and old devotees that haven't been around for a while, and the regulars, that this sound is the transcendental sound. It is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Vyasadeva, and it explains everything that is knowable to man. Everything that's knowable to man is given in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So listen up. Sanatana Goswami wrote a prayer about this book called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, the glories of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And by hearing this stotram submissively and taking it in and trying to understand it, it takes us to a state of consciousness that makes it easier for us to enter into the understanding of the Bhagavatam. It's in Sanskrit, but we're going to read the Sanskrit and the English. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwan Dodita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadaya Te Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin atini chochata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premnarit kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this prayer that we just heard says, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I am in this sound is Krishna himself, and this is not a different statement or different knowledge. It's just more personal and more direct and with more detail. But when it says in the Bible that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, this is what it means, that there's a literary form of God, and that form is His holy name, and the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the full exposition of that literary incarnation of God. So that's what we're associating with. That's who we're associating with. So it's not different, but at the same time it is. Just like a pocket dictionary has all the words in it in the English language, and the table dictionary that they use for research scholars, so many more words, same language. You'll find every word that's in the pocket dictionary, you'll find in the table dictionary, but you won't find all the words in the table dictionary in the pocket dictionary. So the Vedas are like that. The Vedas and the corollary scriptures are like that. They have all the knowledge that's there, all the spiritual sound that's there, that's capable of the human being to understand and to know. Therefore, we have accepted this as our life and soul. Okay, we've reached the 15th. Oh, sorry, I was looking for something else, and I went to another place, sorry. I thought I had it all set up, but 11, 15, 28. No? 15, 28? Now that's what I call a transcendentalist. I thought, my God, John has brought Prabhupada personally into the room. just coming down the corridor. Anyway, it's right here, so we don't have to go down the corridor. 15, 28. Now that's a good ringtone. You're going to spread that around. Spread that one around. Distribute it to everybody. All right. We're hearing the description of mystic yoga by Yogeshwara. The word Yogeshwara means the master of all yoga. That's Krsna. One of his names is Yogeshwara. And we're learning about mystic yoga, what everybody's running after. Well, most people don't even have any idea the possibilities of mystic yoga, but they get a little, shadow of it, and they're running after it. And but now we're hearing about the real thing. And unfortunately, we've gotten pretty far into it, so those of you who are just reading this chapter now, you won't hear all the details. It'll come out, hopefully, by the time we finish our reading. Okay, we're beginning with text 28, Lord Krishna's description of mystic yoga, chapter 15, Canto 11, beginning with text 28. A yogi who has purified his existence by devotion to me and who thus expertly knows the process of meditation obtains knowledge of past, present, and future. He can therefore see the birth and death of himself and others. Purport. After having explained the 8 primary and 10 secondary mystic perfections of yoga, the Lord now explains the 5 inferior potencies. Text 29. So these other yogas that we talked about, becoming smaller than the smallest, becoming bigger than the biggest, being able to reach out and take anything from anywhere, being able to influence people's minds to the point where they can hate others, to be able to overcome the modes of nature and do things that are against the modes of nature. These give wonderful sense of satisfaction, but they're all just shadows of the reality in the spiritual world. Because in the spiritual world, nobody's born, first of all, in the spiritual world, but we have eternal spiritual bodies in the spiritual world. And those spiritual bodies have complete mystic perfections. There's no limitations. The stones that the buildings are made of, they're desire stones. And you can get whatever you want just from stone. What to speak of the trees or the cows. What to speak of knowing what is right and what is wrong. Knowing what to do and what not to do perfectly, exactly, instinctively, spontaneously, in order to please Krishna and increase your loving relationship with Him unlimitedly. That's what you get by going to the spiritual world. So these kinds of mystic yogis, they allow you to, manipulate the material energy to the point where people go, oh, he must be God. And yes, well, maybe I am God. And then you become proud of it, and you get followers and all those kinds of things you get that very quickly, dissolve with time. They are very insignificant and not even thought about by devotees. They get them, but they don't use them and they don't care about them. Just as the bodies of aquatics cannot be injured by water, similarly, the body of a yogi whose consciousness is pacified by devotion and who was fully developed in yoga science cannot be injured by fire, sun, water, poison, and so forth. Purport. The creatures dwelling in the ocean are never injured by water. Rather, they enjoy life within the watery medium. Similarly, for one skilled in the techniques of yoga, fending off attacks by weapons, fire, poison, and so on, is a recreational activity. They do it for fun. Prahlad Maharaj was attacked by his father in all these ways, but because of his perfect Krishna consciousness, he was not injured. The pure devotees of the Lord depend fully on the mercy of Lord Krishna, who possesses mystic opulences to an infinite degree and is therefore known as Yogeshwara, the master of all mystic yoga, mystic power. Because devotees are always connected to Lord Krishna, they do not feel any need to separately develop powers already possessed unlimitedly by their Lord, Master, and Protector. If a human being falls into the middle of the ocean, he quickly drowns, whereas the fish enjoy happiness sporting in the same waves. Similarly, the conditioned souls have fallen into the ocean of material existence and are drowning in the reactions to their sinful activities, whereas the devotees recognize this world to be the potency of the Lord and enjoy pleasurable pastimes within it by fully engaging in the loving service of Lord Krishna. Text 30. My devotee becomes unconquerable by meditating on my opulent incarnations, which are decorated with shrivats and various weapons and are endowed with imperial paraphernalia, such as flags, ornamental umbrellas, and fans. Purport. The imperial paraphernalia of the Lord's opulent incarnations indicates His omnipotency, and the Lord and the devotees become unconquerable by meditating on the Lord's powerful, royally equipped incarnations. As stated by Bilvan Bengal Thakur in Krishna Karnamrita, verse 107, Bhaktis tvayi staditara bhagavan yadi syad daivena nakpalati divya kishori murtihi mukti swayam mukulitan jilasevate sman dharmartha kamam gadayak samaya pratikshaha. My dear Lord, if we develop unflinching devotional service unto you, then automatically your transcendental youthful form is revealed to us. Thus liberation herself waits with folded hands to serve us, and the ultimate goals of religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification patiently wait to render service to us. Text 31. O a learned devotee who worships me through yoga, meditation, certainly obtains in all respects the mystic perfections that I have described. Purport. The word yoga dharanaya indicates that each devotee obtains the particular perfection for which he has qualified himself. The Lord thus concludes his discussion of yoga cities. So this is very interesting, because in the other yogic perfections that some of you missed in the first part of this chapter, it's described that the yogi, by meditating on one aspect of Krishna's opulence, gets a particular yogic power. Like if he meditates on how Krishna is everywhere and fully perfects that meditation and is absorbed completely in that meditation, then he gets the ability to know what other people are thinking. Or when he meditates on the fact that that Krishna is everywhere like the air, then he gets to become lighter than the air, etc., etc. But here, the conclusion of the description of Krishna's description of mystic yoga is the yoga that the mystic perfections that one gets when one actually meditates on the form of the Lord, the full personality of Godhead. Then he surpasses all of those things and becomes happy. Because everyone who's looking for mystic perfections, or any perfection, they're dissatisfied, because they're always got something they're looking for themselves. And it's actually an antithesis to them. In other words, it's artificial, it's not natural for them to do that, because they're spiritual souls. They have spiritual bodies, and their original consciousness is love of God. So when you meditate on on the form of Krishna, and then learn the art of serving that form to his satisfaction, then you get love for Krishna. You become completely satisfied, because that's who we are. That's our original consciousness. Text 32. For a sage who has conquered his senses, breathing and mind, who is self-controlled and always absorbed in meditation on me, what mystic perfection could possibly be difficult to achieve? Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami comments as follows. Lord Krishna here expresses that there is no need to practice many different processes, for by completely carrying out even one of the above-mentioned procedures, one controls one's senses, becomes absorbed in him, and thus achieves all mystic perfections. Srila Jiva Goswami notes that one must meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord, which is free from all material designation. This is the essence of advancing in the yoga system. Thus one acquires all mystic perfections very easily from the personal body of the personality of Godhead. Text 33. Learned experts in devotional service state that the mystic perfections of yoga that I have mentioned are actually impediments and are a waste of time for one who is practicing the supreme yoga, by which one achieves all perfection in life directly from me. Purport. It is common sense that whatever is a useless waste of time should be given up. Therefore, one should not pray to God for mystic yoga perfections. For a pure devotee who has no material desire, even impersonal liberation is a useless disturbance in his life. For what to speak of the material perfections of yoga, which cannot even be compared to impersonal liberation. I'll read that again. For a pure devotee who has no material desire, even impersonal liberation is a useless disturbance in his life. And what to speak of the material perfections of yoga, which cannot even be compared to impersonal liberation. Such mystic perfections may be wonderful for an immature and inexperienced person, but they are not impressive for a learned man who has understood the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Simply by obtaining Lord Krishna, one dwells within an infinite ocean of mystic opulences. Therefore, he should not waste precious time pursuing separate mystic perfections. Text 34. Whatever mystic perfections can be achieved by good birth, herbs, austerities, and mantras can all be achieved by devotional service to me. Indeed, one cannot achieve the actual perfection of yoga by any other means. Purport. By taking birth as a demigod, one is automatically endowed with many mystic perfections. Simply by birth on Siddhaloka, one automatically acquires all of the 8 principal perfections of yoga. Similarly, by birth as a fish, one becomes invulnerable to water. By birth as a bird, one gets the mystic perfection of flying. And by birth as a ghost, one gets the mystic perfection of disappearing and entering into the bodies of others. Patanjali Muni states that the mystic perfections of yoga can be achieved by birth, herbs, austerities, and mantras. The Lord states, however, that such perfections are ultimately a waste of time and an impediment to achieving the actual perfection of yoga, Krishna consciousness. Those who give up the process of bhakti yoga and shop around for other objects of meditation besides Krishna are certainly not very intelligent. Those who claim to be yogis but pursue the satisfaction of their own senses are certainly kuyogis, but pursue the satisfaction of their own senses are certainly those who claim to be yogis but pursue the satisfaction of their own senses are certainly kuyogis or bogi yogis. Bogi yogis. Bogus. Bogi yogis. Such kuyogis cannot understand that just as they have tiny senses, the absolute truth has absolute senses. Nor can they understand that yoga is actually meant to satisfy the absolute senses of the Lord.
Please read that again.
I certainly will. As a matter of fact, I'll read the whole paragraph. Let those who have ears hear. Those who give up the process of bhakti yoga and shop around for other objects of meditation besides Krishna are certainly not very intelligent. Those who claim to be yogis but pursue the satisfaction of their own senses are certainly kuyogis or bogi yogis. Such kuyogis cannot understand that just as they have tiny senses, the absolute truth has absolute senses. Nor can they understand that yoga is actually meant to satisfy the absolute senses of the Lord. Therefore, persons who give up the lotus feet of Lord Krishna in order to pursue so-called happiness and mystic perfection will undoubtedly be frustrated in their attempt. By meditating exclusively on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can achieve yoga gati, the ultimate goal of yoga, which means living on Lord Krishna's planet and there enjoying spiritual opulences, which means personal relationship with Krishna. Text 35. My dear Uddhava, I am the cause, the protector, and the Lord of all mystic perfections, of the yoga system, of analytic knowledge, of pure activity, and of the community of learned Vedic teachers. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word yoga here indicates liberation from material life, and Sankhya indicates the means of obtaining liberation. Thus, Lord Krishna is not merely the Lord of material yoga perfections, but of the highest liberated perfections as well. One can obtain Sankhya, or knowledge leading to liberation, by performing pious activities. And Lord Krishna is also the cause, protector, and Lord of such activities, as well as of the learned teachers, who instruct ordinary people in the means of piety. In many different ways, Lord Krishna is the real object of meditation and worship for every living entity. Lord Krishna, through the expansion of his potencies, is everything. And this simple understanding is called Krishna consciousness, the supreme perfection of the yoga system. Text 36. Just as the same material elements exist within and outside of all material bodies, similarly, I cannot be covered by anything else. I exist within everything as the Supersoul and outside of everything in my all-pervading feature. Purport. Lord Krishna is the entire basis of meditation for all yogis, philosophers, and here the Lord clarifies his absolute position. Since the Lord is within everything, one might think that the Lord is divided into pieces. However, the word anavrita, or completely uncovered, indicates that nothing can interrupt, disturb, or in any way infringe upon the supreme existence of the Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead. There is no actual separation between the internal and external existence of the material elements, which continuously exist everywhere. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading and is the ultimate perfection of everything. Would you like to hear that again? I thought so. There is no, wait. Lord Krishna is the entire basis of meditation for all yogis and philosophers. And here the Lord clarifies his absolute position. Since the Lord is within everything, one might think that the Lord is divided into pieces. However, the word anavrita, or completely uncovered, indicates that nothing can interrupt, disturb, or in any way infringe upon the supreme existence of the Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead. There is no actual separation between the internal and external existence of the material elements, which continuously exist everywhere. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading and is the ultimate perfection of everything. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 15th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Description of Mystic Yoga Perfection. Haribol. Encore, encore, encore. This, I always say that this is like, it's like the acts of a drama. The Bhagavatam is like this huge, unlimited, supreme drama, the history of the universe. And so every chapter is like an act of that supreme drama. So therefore we clap at the end and we want more. Encore, encore. And Krishna is so wonderful that he gives it to us every time. We think it can't get better. It just keeps getting better. Okay. Chapter 16. The Lord's Opulence. In this chapter, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, describes his manifest opulences in terms of his specific potencies of knowledge, strength, influence, and so on. Sri Uddhava offered glorification to Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ultimate shelter of all holy places, saying, "The Supreme Lord has no beginning and no end. He is the cause of the birth, maintenance, and destruction of all living entities. He is the soul of all beings, and by secretly taking up residence within all living bodies, he sees everything." He is the soul of all beings, and by secretly taking up residence within all living bodies, he sees everything. The conditioned souls, on the other hand, are bewildered by his external energy, and thus are unable to see him. After offering such prayers to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Sri Uddhava revealed his desire to know about the Lord's various opulences in heaven, on earth, in hell, and in all directions. Lord Sri Krishna then described all these opulences, after which he commented that all power, beauty, fame, opulence, humility, charity, charm, good fortune, valor, tolerance, and wisdom, wherever they are manifest, are simply expansions from himself. If it therefore cannot be truthfully said that a material object actually possesses these opulences. Such conceptions are the results of mentally combining two ideas to produce an object that exists only in the imagination, such as a sky flower or a horse egg. That's mine. Material objects are not substantially true, and therefore one should not become too involved in meditating upon them. The pure devotees of the Supreme Lord utilize their intelligence to properly regulate the activities of their speech, mind, and vital force, and thus perfect their existence in Krishna consciousness. Text 1. That's just a summary of the chapter. Well, now we'll hear the detail. Text 1. Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord, you are beginningless and endless, the Absolute Truth Himself, unlimited by anything else. You are the protector and life giver, the destruction and creation of all things that exist." Purport. Brahma means the greatest of all and the cause of everything. Uddhava here addresses the Lord as the Paramam, or Supreme Brahma, because of his feature as Bhagavan. The Lord is the highest feature of the Absolute Truth and the shelter of unlimited spiritual opulences. Unlike those of ordinary living entities, the Lord's opulences cannot be restricted by time, and thus the Lord is anadyantam, without beginning or end, and apavritam, unhindered by any superior or equal potency. The opulence of the material world is also resting within the Lord, who alone can protect, maintain, create, and destroy the material world. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires from the Lord about his spiritual and material opulences in order to refine his appreciation of the Lord's position as the Absolute Truth. Even Lord Vishnu, the ultimate creator of the material world, is an expansion of Lord Krishna, and thus Sri Uddhava wishes to fully appreciate the unique status of his personal friend. Text 2. My dear Lord, although it is difficult for the impious to understand that you are situated in all superior and inferior creations, those brahmanas who are actual knowers of the Vedic conclusion worship you in truth. Purport. The behavior of saintly persons is also to be taken as evidence, and therefore it is here stated that although ignorant, impious persons are bewildered before the Lord's all-pervading feature, those with purified, clear consciousness worship the Lord as He is. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires about the Lord's opulences, and here the words uchchaveshu bhuteshu, uchchavecheshu bhuteshu, within superior and inferior creations, clearly refer to the Lord's external opulences, those manifested in the material world. The saintly Brahmanas, or Vaishnavas, worship Lord Krishna within all things, and yet recognize the variety in the Lord's creation. For example, in worshipping the deity, the devotees will select the nicest flowers, fruits, and ornaments for decorating the transcendental form of the Lord. Similarly, although the Lord is present in the heart of every conditioned soul, the devotee will give more attention to a conditioned soul interested in the message of Lord Krishna. Although the Lord is everywhere, the devotees make distinctions for the sake of the Lord's service between His presence in superior, ucca, and inferior, avacheshu, creations. Text 3. Please tell me of the perfections of great sages. Please tell me of the perfections that great sages achieve by worshipping you with devotion. Also, kindly explain which of your different forms they worship. Purport. Sri Uddhava here inquires about the spiritual opulences of the Lord, which consist primarily of His Vishnu Tattva expansions, such as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. By worshipping different plenary expansions of the Lord, one achieves particular perfections, and Sri Uddhava wants to know about this. Text 4. O my Lord, maintainer of all, although you are the super soul of the living entities, you remain hidden. Thus, being bewildered by you, the living entities cannot see you, although you are seeing them. Purport. The Lord exists as the super soul within everything. He also appears in various incarnations, or sometimes empowers a devotee to act as an incarnation. All such forms of the Lord are unknown to the non-devotees. The bewildered conditioned souls think that the Supreme Enjoyer, Sri Krishna, is actually meant to be enjoyed by them for their sense gratification. Praying to God for specific material property, the non-devotees cannot understand the actual form of the Lord. They therefore remain foolish and bewildered. Within the universe, everything is subject to creation, maintenance, and destruction. And thus the Supersoul is the only actual controller in the material world. Unfortunately, when the Supersoul appears in various incarnations to clarify his position, ignorant persons think that the Supersoul is merely another creation of the modes of material nature. As stated in this verse, they cannot see that person who is actually seeing them, and simply remain bewildered. Text 5. O Supremely Potent Lord, please explain to me your innumerable potencies, which you manifest on the earth, in heaven, in hell, and indeed in all directions. I offer my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, which are the shelter of all holy places. Purport. Uddhava here inquires about the Lord's material and spiritual potencies, as manifested within our universe. Just as ordinary animals or insects living in human cities cannot appreciate the scientific, cultural, or military achievements of man, similarly foolish materialists cannot appreciate the mighty opulences of the personality of Godhead, even those manifested within our universe. This is too good. This is too good. For the appreciation of ordinary human beings, Uddhava requests the Lord to reveal exactly how and in what forms he expands his potencies. As already explained, the Lord is the essential ingredient of all that exists, and thus any mighty or opulent manifestation must ultimately rest on the Lord himself. Text 6. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O best of those who know how to inquire, let those who have ears hear. O best of those who know how to inquire, On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna, desiring to fight with his rivals, asked me the same question that you are now posing. Purport. Lord Krishna was pleased that his two friends, Arjuna and Uddhava, had posed the same question regarding the opulences of the personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna considered it wonderful that his two dear friends had asked exactly the same question. Text 7. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna thought that killing his relatives would be an abominable, irreligious activity, motivated only by his desire to acquire a kingdom. He therefore desisted from the battle, thinking, I would be the killer of my relatives. They would be destroyed. Thus Arjuna was afflicted with mundane consciousness. Purport. Lord Krishna here explains to Uddhava the circumstances in which Sri Arjuna posed his questions. Text 8. At that time, I enlightened Arjuna, the tiger among men, with logical arguments, and thus in front of the battle, Arjuna addressed me with questions in the same way that you are now inquiring. Text 9. My dear Uddhava, I am the supersoul of all living entities, and therefore I am naturally their well-wisher and supreme controller. Being the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of all entities, I am not different from them. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami points out that the personality of Godhead maintains an ablative and genitive relationship with his opulences. In other words, the Lord is not different from all living entities because they are coming from him and they belong to him. The Lord gave a similar explanation to Arjuna in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 10:20, beginning with the same words, Aham Atma. Although the Lord described his external or material opulences, the Lord's position is always transcendental and non-material. Just as the living soul within the body gives life to the body, similarly the Lord, by his supreme potency, gives life to all universal opulences. Text 10. I am the ultimate goal of all those seeking progress, and I am time among those who exert control. I am the equilibrium of the modes of material nature, and I am natural virtue among the pious. Text 11. Among things possessing qualities, I am the primary manifestation of nature, and among great things, I am the total material creation. Among subtle things, I am the spirit soul, and of things that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. Okay, relax now. That's right. It's difficult for everybody, so don't think you can't do it. Text 12. Among the Vedas, I am their original teacher, Lord Brahma, and of all mantras, I am the three-lettered Omkara. Among letters, I am the first letter, A, and among sacred meters, I am the Gayatri mantra. 13. Among the demigods, I am Indra, and among the Vasus, I am Agni, the god of fire. I am Vishnu among the sons of Aditi, and among the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Vishnu appeared among the sons of Aditi as Vamanadev. 14. Among saintly Brahmanas, I am Bhrigumuni, and I am Manu among saintly kings. I am Narada Muni among saintly demigods, and I am Kamadhenu among cows. 15. I am Lord Kapila among perfected beings, and Garuda among birds. I am Daksha among the progenitors of mankind, and I am Aryama, forefathers. 16. My dear Uddhava, among the sons of Diti, know me to be Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly lord of the Asuras. Among the stars and herbs, I am their lord, Chandra, the moon. And among yakshas and rakshasas, I am lord of wealth, Kuvera. 17. I am Airavata among lordly elephants. And among aquatics, I am Varuna, the lord of the seas. Among all things that heat and illuminate, I am the sun. And among human beings, I am the king. Purport. It is significant to know that Lord Krishna is represented within this universe by the Lord or Supreme in all categories. No one can be as aristocratic and perfect as Sri Krishna, nor can anyone estimate the glories of Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is without doubt the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 18. Among horses I am Uchchaishava, and I am gold among metals. I am Yamaraj among those who suppress and punish, and among serpents I am Vasuki. 19. O sinless Uddhava, among the best of snakes I am Anantadev, and among those animals with sharp horns or teeth I am the lion. Among the spiritual orders I am the fourth, or the renounced order of life, and among the occupational divisions I am the first, the Brahmanas. 20. Among sacred and flowing things I am the holy Ganges, and among steady bodies of water I am the ocean. Among weapons I am the bow, and among the wielders of the bow I am Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Shiva used his bow to completely cover with arrows the three demoniac cities built by Mayadanava. Text 21. Among residences I am Mount Sumeru, and of impervious places I am the Himalayas. Among trees I am the holy fig tree, and among plants I am those that bear grains. Purport. Oshadinam here indicates those plants that fructify once and then die. Among them, those that give grains which sustain human life represent Krishna. Without grains, it is not possible to produce milk products, nor can one properly perform Vedic fire sacrifices without offerings of grains. Text 22. Among priests, I am Vishishta Muni, and among those highly situated in Vedic culture, I am Brihaspati. I am Kartikeya among great military leaders, and among those advancing in superior ways of life, I am the great personality, Lord Brahma. 23. Among sacrifices, I am study of the Veda, and I am non-violence among vows. Among all things that purify, I am the wind, fire, the sun, water, and speech. 24. Among the 8 progressive states of yoga, I am the final stage, samadhi, in which the soul is completely separated from illusion. Among those desiring victory, I am prudent political counsel, and among processes of expert discrimination, I am the science of the soul, by which one distinguishes spirit from matter. Among all speculative philosophers, I am diversity of perception. Purport. Any science based on the faculty of expert discrimination, any science is based on the faculty of expert discrimination. By skillful definition of isolated and interactive components, one becomes expert in any field. Ultimately, the most intelligent person can isolate the spirit soul from matter and describe the properties of matter and spirit as both isolated and interactive components of reality. The proliferation of innumerable philosophical speculations are due to differing modes of perception within the material world. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya Chaham Riti Sanavisto Matak Smritir Jnanam Apavanam Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart and awards a particular degree of knowledge or ignorance according to one's desire and merit. Thus the Lord Himself is the basis of the mundane process of philosophical speculation, for He creates differing and alternating modes of perception within the conditioned souls. It is to be understood that one can acquire perfect knowledge only by hearing directly from Lord Krishna, and not by hearing from conditioned philosophers who imperfectly perceive the creation of the Lord through the screen of their personal desires. Whoa. Let's hear that one again. It is to be understood that one can acquire perfect knowledge only by hearing directly from Lord Krishna, and not by hearing from conditioned philosophers who imperfectly perceive the creation of the Lord through the screen of their impersonal desires. Yeah, that's good. 25. Among ladies I am Shatarupa, and among male personalities I am her husband, Swayam Bhuvamanu. I am Narayana among the sages, and Sanat Kumara among brahmacharis. Text 26. Among religious principles I am renunciation, and of all types of security I am consciousness of the eternal soul within. Of all types of security I am consciousness of the eternal soul within. Of secrets I am pleasant speech and silence, and among sexual pairs I am Brahma. Purport. One who realizes the eternal soul within no longer fears any material situation, and thus is qualified to accept the renounced order of life, sannyas. Certainly fear is one of the great miseries of material life. Therefore the gift of fearlessness is very valuable and represents Lord Krishna. Both in ordinary pleasant speech and silence, very few confidential things are revealed. And thus diplomacy and silence are both aids to secrecy. Lord Brahma is prominent among sexual pairs because the original beautiful couple, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, emerged from Lord Brahma's body, as explained in chapter 12 of the third canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Text 20. This is hard to stop. I mean, this is really hard to stop. I got to stop for sometime soon, but it's really tough. Among the vigilant cycles of time, I am the year, and among seasons I am spring. Among months I am Margashirsha, and among lunar houses I am the auspicious Abhijit. 28. Among ages I am the Satya Yuga, the age of truth, and among steady sages I am Devala and Asita. Among those who have divided the Vedas I am Krishna Dvaipayana Veda Vyas, and among learned scholars I am Shukracharya, the knower of spiritual science. 29. Among those entitled to the name Bhagavan, I am Vasudeva, and indeed you, Uddhava, represent me among the devotees. I am Hanuman among the Kimpurushas, and among the Vidyadharas I am Sudarshan. Purport. The Vedic literatures state that one who possesses perfect knowledge of the creation and destruction of all entities, and who is completely situated in omniscience, is to be known as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Although many great personalities are sometimes called Bhagavan, ultimately Bhagavan is the one supreme entity who possesses unlimited opulences. Throughout history, many important personalities have been addressed as Lord, but ultimately there is only one Supreme Lord. In the Lord's Chaturvyuha, or quadruple expansion, the first manifestation is Vasudev, who here represents all of the Lord's expansions in the Vishnu category. Among jewels, I am the ruby. And among beautiful things, I am the lotus cup. Among all types of grass, I am the sacred kusha. And of oblations, I am ghee and other ingredients obtained from the cow. Purport. Panchagavya refers to 5 sacrificial ingredients obtained from the cow, namely milk, ghee, yogurt, dung, and urine. The cow is so valuable that even its dung and urine are antiseptic and fit for sacrificial offering. Kusha grass is also used for religious occasions. Maharaj Parikshit constructed a sitting place from kusha grass during the last week of his life. Among beautiful things, the lotus cup formed by lotus petals represents Lord Krishna. And among jewels, the ruby, which is similar to Krishna's own Kaustuba gem. Symbolizes the potency of the Lord. And you know, I want to go on and on and on, but I got to stop. Hare Krishna. Otherwise, there's not going to be time for discussions and reflections. So I'll stop our reading here. Just the tip of the iceberg of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, are described here. And it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, that the knowledge of on the earth right now about God is very minuscule, is very not unimportant, but what's the word? Insignificant. You know, what we can know about God is unlimited, and what we now know about Him is very little. So sometimes, you know, when the Christians pray, "Our dear Lord, give us our daily bread," you know, as if He isn't giving us our daily bread all the time anyway, it shows that we don't really know what to ask, how to ask it. We don't know how to glorify Him properly so that He's the most magnanimous person, you know. But if some magnanimous person comes and you say some little thing, he's not going to feel so much like, but if you actually say something that reflects his position and his potency and his ability to give magnanimity, then he'll feel more comfortable and more willing to fulfill desires that he can give. So Lord is the fulfiller of all desires. And by knowing who He is and what the details are, we can know what to say. We can know how to approach. We can know what to ask for. We can know who we are. Okay, I'm getting carried away. I'm going to just put something in my mouth, so I'll shut up. This is our open mic time. So the mic is here, and if he's not too stunned to pass it around, he's there to pass it around. Hare Krishna. Any point that came out that there's so many points. I know this is overwhelming, but if any point stuck in your mind and you want to reflect, and we have Honest John, lucky for us.
I lost my spot. As you were...
You'll find it.
As you were saying earlier, just a small comment about what you were saying in this verse. It says, "Oh, my Lord, maintainer of all, although you are the super soul of the living entities, you remain hidden. Thus, being bewildered by you, the living entities cannot see you, although you are seeing them." So we suffer, like you said, from a lack of knowledge.
The example is given that the hand cannot see the eye. but it doesn't know where to go and what to do without the I.
And we stumble along trying to develop our own, trying to find God, through different ways, until luckily we stumble across this, which is the Lord's mercy, that we've discovered this. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful. True blue. Maybe we've got to start calling you True Blue John. Thanks, that was nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're stumbling in the dark without knowledge, without Oma Gyanati Mirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakya. We were born in ignorance. Who wasn't born in ignorance? Our mom's got to teach us everything, from how to do our bathroom things to whatever, everything. How to eat, how to protect ourselves, what to do, what not to do. It's all given by our mothers. Yes, Prana, I was hoping you'd take us somewhere here.
I just have two small reflections. That I like the one point about how small, like animals and insects, they don't have the appreciating capacity to value, this human civilization. I mean, I'm just thinking nowadays, there's not much, but the cities and
Same.
everything.
Even in Vedic age, it was same. They had cities there, and they have very wonderful things, and the birds can't understand, and chipmunks
And so in the same way, we are so kind of covered over and minute in comparison, we don't have we can't necessarily value, or at least the ignorant conditioned soul cannot value, I should say.
Yeah.
One with that lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Can't value the grandeur of
Yes.
God.
Yes.
And his opulences, like we were hearing. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I also like that of all things about something like security, of all secure ways of feeling secure, the consciousness of the eternal spirit soul.
Yes.
Krishna's I am that. So
Yes.
I thought that was really great because it just made me think of that last chapter or two we heard about Hamsa Avatar, how as soon as you realize transcendental nature, then automatically this mind and senses, the pulling of the mind and senses, you're fearless because you're free from it. You don't identify anymore.
If you don't know who you are, how can you know what's good for you? If you're thinking you're just a bag of, and flesh and this and that and the other thing, how can you know it is actually good for you? You can't. So knowledge of yourself, that's the most secret thing and glorious thing.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tyler.
Just so many reflections and realizations coming from this little reading. Just the inconceivable reality of Krishna. Pretty phenomenal. One point in the reading, I remember it said that material objects, or that spiritual objects don't not like material objects that actually dissimulate, or they come to like an end. Spiritual objects are always being, they're eternal. So then I thought, wait, if something's there for eternity, it could get old. You know what? Like, there things there because we would like want things to change, but the spiritual energy is variegated at the same time. So Krishna is just like creating change simultaneously with eternal. I don't know if that was a little realization, if that makes sense.
Would you like to go into more about that?
You would like to expand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the spiritual world, nobody ever gets bored. Because in the spiritual world there's no time. So every time you meet somebody, it's like you're meeting them for the first time. Every time. You may see them 100 times a day, and each time is like seeing them for the first time. Get your mind around that.
Yeah.
And then you can understand why nobody's bored in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And even though there's variegated life, there's the same rising and getting up and having breakfast with your parents and friends and going out and playing and working and doing all the things that we do. That's going on there too. But every time we do it, it's like the first time we did it. Just imagine the first time you tasted a chocolate cake and you were capable. I guess a baby gets it, but they can't understand what it is. But first time you're able to actually understand something like really delicious, like a chocolate cake, or anyway, whatever your favorite thing is. And the first time you taste it, it's like, wow, this is it. And then the next time, it's like, yeah. Now what? What's next? And of course that goes to the level of the places in China right now that have open markets there. They sell anything that moves to eat. And now the whole planet is just going crazy with the diseases that's spreading. And it's all because they're so bored. They got to taste everything. Oh, I already tasted that. Let me taste a snake, or let me taste a bat, or let me taste a whatever. Please, Ida.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to continue.
No, it's for you. It's for you.
Thank you.
You have to.
Please don't turn that.
Okay, don't
I'm very
worry.
camera shy. But following what you were saying, is like you mentioned, when it happens, when it's always the first time of the same experience, I truly believe that's the case. Is because think about it this way: when the maximum potential of something meets the maximum potentiality of something else, something wonderful, something that never happened before happens.
Yes.
And it constantly happens that way because things are maximum potential, evolved and evolves over on top of each other, because that's the reality and nature of Krishna. So that never ends. So the mind can never wrap itself around it, because mind is a very limited pattern, or a human mind at the very least. And the Krishna mind is unlimited. So you can't hold a cup, of the ocean and call it the ocean anymore, but you can get a taste of it, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between the material and spiritual world.
Exactly.
Because in the material world, all those potentials and sub-potentials, they're all temporary. The forms and the things that they represent are temporary. This is the point.
Right.
But in the spiritual world, the forms are eternal.
Exactly.
You don't get old.
And
The things don't disintegrate.
You're not just. It's not as if you're just meeting for the first time. You're meeting for the every time in that first time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Just wanted to make sure that
Yes,
if
you can
if
taste.
it helped anything,
You
I
can
don't know.
you can taste something forever.
But it's your maximum.
But then you taste the next thing, and you can taste that forever. And then you can taste the next thing, and you taste that forever, and it never ends.
And it's like containing information and knowledge from every aspect of every existent or non-existent at the same time. It's like complete emptiness in the world, and complete everything is in the world comes together, but not comes together, because that's our mind trying to wrap itself around.
That's a philosophical concept. There's no such thing as emptiness.
Right, but that's I'm not trying to say it's empty, but it's that the empty space, meaning the space where everything can happen in, the void. Think of it as your DNA.
There is no void. There is no void.
So this is the space where we are in now.
Not even in the material world. There's no void. All the space is filled up with something. But in the spiritual world, there's no time and there's no space.
Right.
But there's forms.
But the forms exist in some space.
No, there's no space, but there's form.
Can a form exist without the space?
Yes.
How?
It's spiritual. It's made of spiritual energy. Because there's
a spatial space, maybe?
Yes. There's no spiritual. There's no material energy in the spiritual world. But we have a tendency, because we're conditioned by the material energy, to think that because here there's forms, then the opposite must be formless. We tend to think like that. When we're left to our own devices, when we're left to our own philosophical capacity to think of things and think it through, we tend, in the material world, to come to the conclusion that what is spiritual and unlimited must not have form, must not have varieties, must not have these things. So we tend to compare the spiritual world with the things you're talking about.
So how do you separate that ever getting involved in your mind? Because we are using human experiences such as tasting something from this dimension and that dimension so that we can understand it. Say, if you're tasting something in this world, the chocolate for the first time, obviously in a spiritual world there is no chocolate.
Oh,
or
there's
it is
chocolate.
So,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
so if there is chocolate, then there are the experiences both in this dimension and above this dimension.
Yes.
How
but
do you label those?
but there, you don't label them. We label them here.
For the sake of our understanding.
It's a reflection.
So
It's like a shadow. It's like here's my shadow of my hand, and you know, if the shadow is connected to the hand, and it only goes where the hand goes.
right. And
But
there's
it
a
hasn't.
space
But it
between.
hasn't. But it hasn't. No, listen. But it hasn't got any form. It hasn't got any warmth. It hasn't got any. But it's connected. It's dependent. So the material world is like the shadow of the spiritual world, or the reflection of the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, there's the real forms, and they're made of spiritual energy. They're not made of earth and water and fire and earth and all these things. They're made of pure spiritual energy. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Right? So the forms are actually made of those energies. And this material world is a reflection of those forms into material energy, which is temporary. So when you look at yourself in a mirror, it looks like you, right? But you touch it, there's no warmth, there's no, I mean,
Right.
if he comes and kisses your cheek on the mirror, it's like, there's nothing there, you know.
So
And when you raise your left hand in the mirror, your right hand raises. It's backwards.
It's everything. Oh God.
It backwards. It backwards. And then when you step away from the mirror, it disappears. Those are what we call the properties of reflection. So the material world and everything that goes on here is simply a three-dimensional, touchy-feely reflection of the spiritual world. Just like when we see the patterns of light on the wall, you know, that form a movie, and we can get involved in that, and we can cry, we can laugh, we can become terrible, we can hide underneath our chair because it's so terrifying what's happening. But it's just patterns of light on the wall.
So
But the reality is there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to identify with those things and have that experience. So the answer is that we have spiritual senses. Inside, we have spiritual senses. Ears, nose, tongue, all the senses, feeling, all the senses we have in a spiritual form, in a spiritual body. And there's a spiritual world.
So that's the perception of Satchitananda, that if you can develop those spiritual senses, then you should be able to perceive that.
You already have the spiritual senses.
Right, but can
And
you
therefore, you can't develop anything because you are just a little spot of the universe. You're not in control of anything. You think you're in control of something, but actually, the fact is that the senses of the body and the mind are inert by nature. They're inert. If you block the nerves in this arm, it will go completely like this, and it'll be like it's not even connected to you. You may have had that experience. I had that experience when I had an operation. They blocked this one, and it was like you had to be very careful when you took a shower, because otherwise you'd bang yourself and you cut yourself to pieces, and you wouldn't even notice it. You can't even feel it. So it means that the material senses are inert. So it's not the eyes that are seeing, It's not the brain that's seeing. It's not the tongue that's tasting. It's actually the soul proper, the spiritual body, which is experiencing all those things. But it's like you're trying to taste something and you've got a sweater on your tongue. You can't really taste it. So we're trying to taste the reality with spiritual senses, but we're covered with material senses. And therefore, we're always disappointed, always in anxiety, because we want love, we want eternal relationship, we want freedom from fear, we want to know what's going to happen next. The soul has all of that knowledge, but it's covered by the material energy. And that's our position in the material world. And by hearing these things that we're hearing from the right source, then that spiritual body is awakened. I mean, I understand what you're saying, developed. You can think of it as being developed, but what it really is awakened. And once the spiritual senses are awakened, then the material things, the material pleasures, they become dull in comparison. And therefore we're not as attracted to them. We may still be having the same things we do, but we're not like overwhelmed by attachment for them. You know, because in our spiritual body we're realizing we are eternal. And we belong in a spiritual world, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the source of all of that, and He's the object of our love. He becomes the object of our love. And therefore Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all thy strength and all thy heart and all thy mind. Then you can see. Then you can see the difference between matter and spirit. And then you can taste spiritual pleasure. Hare Krishna.
But how do you know that it said earlier that only to focus on the ultimate Krishna, not any of the properties of Krishna? And I feel like it's unclear whether I'm focusing on the ultimate Krishna or just one of the properties of Krishna, a sub-Krishna.
Right.
There's no such thing as a sub-Krishna.
Well, then why did they tell us not to focus on the other things? It seems like I could just as well focus on...
You can focus on one of the potentialities,
No.
and they say that's not good because that's what yogis do. You know, you can meditate on the properties of, you know, the...
It's the difference between
the
difference between personalism and impersonalism. Like if you may have a a nickname. Mm-hmm. You know, you may have curly hair, and they might call you Curly. You know, but and when you grow up and you become a high court judge, you may walk into a room and everybody may stand up and say, Your Honor, or some other epithet. And that gives like another level of satisfaction, another level of another level of your personality. But when you go home at night to your wife and she says, "Hey, honey," and it's more. It's the same. You're the same person. You know. So therefore, when you say, you know, when you meditate on the aspects of Krishna, it's Krishna, but it's not complete, and it's not as tasty.
So you can gain it, but you can't be attached to it because that takes away from path of bhakti or service, and it takes away from your samadhi experience because you've been attached to Your Honor, honey, or curly. But if you can pass through those levels, then you can be all but...
It's the same person.
Right.
It's the same person that's experiencing all those levels of satisfaction.
Right.
It means there's different relationships that you can have with God. I'm trying to answer his question. So even when you're meditating on the aspects of Krishna, it is Krishna. But the taste that you get by meditating on the personality of Godhead is complete, whereas the other is partial.
But they're all but which one is the personality?
That's Krishna. That's Krishna,
but how
the supreme
how do I
personality of
create
Godhead.
that
You don't create it.
experience?
You can't create it. You can't create it. You're not God. He's God. He created you. You can't create God. You can't create Krishna. You can't imagine Krishna and what a Krishna is like. He has to reveal himself to you. And he reveals himself to you when you develop love for him. It sounds like circular reasoning, and to a scientist it may seem strange, but it's like that.
But it's enjoyable to understand. Excuse us for asking, because we're very interested in the matter and we're trying to understand this.
Not only are we not excusing, we're relishing it, like anything.
Because, so trying to explain and understand it, because he is saying he is the most loving, but he could be the most loving, and he could all at the same time be the one that can punish you, right? So it's like everything in between he can be. He can be your bread, he can be your butter, he could also be exact opposite, because at least what we were reading in here is like he's explaining he is the best, the most of all. And the most of all, if you put it on a spectrum, it ends here,
It's
and it ends here.
That's right.
And
No,
everything
no,
in between,
no, but
right?
no. That's a material conception.
Okay, how do we experience
He's
that?
all of that at the same time. There's no inside and outside of Krishna. I'll give you an example.
Is the outside, yes.
Yes. So I'll give you an example.
Oh, that's hard to understand. Oh God, I've been in trouble.
Well, you came to the right place. You were in trouble. Now you're not in trouble.
We'll see about that.
Once Mother Yashoda, in the spiritual world, Mother Yashoda was, Krishna doesn't have a mother. He's the mother and father of everyone. But because some souls, some individual souls, want to love Krishna in a certain way, he plays that role with them. So sometimes he will allow an individual soul who's not God. There's the individual soul, the infinitesimal person, and then there's the supreme person. That's Krishna. So he sometimes allows and has a relationship with the person as if it's the mother. And the mother will protect him, even though he's protecting everyone. But he allows that relationship to happen. So one time Mother Yashoda caught Krishna stealing butter. And Haribo, Hare Krishna, hey, Vrindavaneshwari, is Krishna Katha here? Oh, well, come on in, please. So Krishna, he's hiding from his mother, and he takes the butter and he feeds it to the monkeys and so many things, and then Mother Yashoda comes and catches him, and then he runs away, and she chases him, and she can't catch him. Nobody can catch God, but out of love, he allows her, because he's seeing how she's working so hard and she's sweating, and so he says, okay, you can catch me. So she catches him, and she's, now I'm gonna tie you up so that you won't do this again. It's my duty, don't mind. I'm your mother, so I have to do this, So she goes and gets a rope, and she puts it around his waist, and it's 2 inches short. So it's not long enough. So she goes out and gets another rope, and she ties it to the other rope, and she puts it around, and it's still 2 inches short. And then she goes through the whole house, and she keeps getting more and more rope. Now it's a big, huge thing. And she puts it around, and it's still 2 inches short. And it's not that she's wrapping it around and around and around and around and around, and then it's 2 inches short. Another time, she was feeding Krishna her best breast milk, and she was watching with complete ecstasy and watching his little teeth coming in. And then he opened his mouth, and she saw the whole universe inside his mouth. Everything, including her nursing him inside his mouth. So there's no inside and outside of Krishna. We are all inside Krishna, and Krishna at the same time is outside of everything as the source of everything. Therefore, the material logic doesn't work there, and the material, the calculus doesn't work there. 1 minus 1 is equal to 1. 1 plus 1 is equal to 1.
They're all equal to Krishna.
We're accustomed because there's nothing wrong at all. You're just opening up. You're opening up. You've learned certain things about God and about spiritual conceptions and spiritual philosophy, and now you've come to the source, the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and it's all here. And if you just keep hearing and trying to understand, hearing and trying to understand, not by the process of logic and reasoning, but by the mercy of Krishna, when he sees just how eager you are to know him, how, not just eager, desperate you are to know him, then he will reveal himself to you through the Srimad-Bhagavatam, through the holy name of Krishna, through Krishna Prasadam, which is cooked with love and offered with love to Krishna, and you take that and you become enlightened. And you see the form of Krishna in the temple, and you chant his name. All these things are not different than Krishna, as you were saying. So how do I tell what's Krishna and what's not Krishna? Yeah, well, once that falls away and you realize that everything is Krishna, but at the same time, you can't worship, this as Krishna. Because Krishna is aloof as the source of everything. Therefore, in the 9th chapter, Krishna says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham te svavaskritaha. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishvaram bhuta brin nachabhuta sto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. That's just 2 verses.
Harder than quantum physics.
Yes. And all the rest of it fills in the details.
Thank you.
I'll take the book.
Give me the book. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ida. Those were lovely, lovely questions, and your curiosity is beautiful. And just keep trying to understand through this knowledge, and don't think that there's something more to it. There is more to it, but it will come by revelation. It will come by revelation. It won't come by calculation, by mundane calculation. Hare Krishna. Laura, how you doing? Okay? Nice. Yes, Carter.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Bhakti Carter.
I had a very small realization, just tied back to text 24 that we read tonight. In this verse, Krishna was talking about how among the 8 progressive states of yoga, he is the final stage, samadhi. And the very last sentence was, to me, was kind of the cherry on top of the day I've been having for helping me realize more of the infallibility, potencies in which all of Krishna really is, and especially this verse here, among all speculative philosophers.
Put the mic out. Yeah, there you go.
Among all speculative philosophers, I am the diversity of perception. So
among all speculative philosophers, I am the diversity of perception. There it is.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty infallible. So.
Yes, Thank you very much. That sheds light on what we were just talking about. Thank you so
Can I
much.
add a bit?
Yes, go ahead, Lily.
It's the same verse, but the very last sentence of the purport. It is to be understood that one can acquire perfect knowledge only by hearing directly from Lord Krishna and not by hearing from conditioned philosophers who imperfectly perceive the creation of the Lord through the screen of their personal desires. And I thought it was kind of
There you
funny
go.
because we actually have screens today where people are putting up all of their personal desires and their philosophical speculation.
That was in school? Or in, no, when was
No,
this?
just now.
Oh.
I just read this now.
Oh, I
We
see.
read this during the reading, but I was just thinking because,
Oh, I see.
online I try to share stuff about Krishna. I try to just share like exact verses and stuff
Right,
too.
right,
but
right.
all these people, they think they know what Bhakti Yoga is, and they speak about things like the Rasa Leela or stuff like that from their own perspective.
Yes.
Confusing the whole lot of spiritual seekers out there.
Yes.
So I also wanted to say thank you very much for live streaming, for putting this on YouTube, because it's going to be here for a very long time, sharing a lot of knowledge.
May your wish come true. So be it. But it's another
Really
another
hope so.
point that's coming out of what you just said, and I think this connects also to what you were saying, and that is this is a very, very deep, spiritual but precise science. It's actually a spiritual science, and just like, she's made a point, a very important point, how some people, they think, okay, samadhi is the goal, so they try to go direct to samadhi. But you get through samadhi through understanding like arithmetic is one subject, mathematics is one subject. But unless you learn the integers, the relationship of the integers in the beginning, you can't go to quantum or integral calculus or all these higher physics and all these higher levels of mathematics and theoretical physics and everything without those basics.
Right.
And those basics stay true all the way through. But there's a science in which you develop the understanding of them deeper and deeper until you understand reality more completely. So it's a spiritual science, and the basics of the spiritual science are given right there in that book.
Which is why I think it's very important to learn the basis correctly, so I can have a correct
You can have a
conversation about
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Because we can always be, I don't want to accidentally spend so much time trying to solve the wrong or not the right question. And it's not necessarily for the sake of enlightenment of a personal joy or samadhi in that level, but it's because we live in environments where we all are connected to each other one way or another, and that for the sake of the supreme consciousness, we owe that to each other to clarify all we know and how we work together to have that experience. So I'm very curious and at the same time very careful what I pick up as a message.
Therefore, read it cover to cover.
And then I come back.
Cover to cover.
Thank you. I'll do again. Last time didn't get it.
Cover to cover.
Thank you.
And then you'll get it. And then the Bhagavatam is 700 verses. And the Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita is another 11,000 something.
And do you think understanding and learning this in Sanskrit would be perhaps for the sake of the true knowledge better than trying to understand in a limited, translated? And I know this is a very, very, very profound translation.
I'm going to read to you exactly the point you just brought up. I just thought about the other day, and I heard Srila Prabhupada say something very profound about this. So I'm going to share it with you. Okay? Is it okay?
Please.
This is a conversation that Prabhupada had with someone in Canada. Yeah, Montreal. No, I'm sorry. Australia. I think it was Melbourne. Brian Singer. Do you find that in the translation from the thoughts in the Sanskrit to the English words, then from the English words to the mass of the people's heads, do you find that there is much loss? Prabhupada, no. If you have grasped the thought, then you can express in any language. But if you cannot grasp the thought, then you cannot express. So our translation is that we have to receive the thoughts as it is by the parampara system. Therefore it is presented so nicely and people like it. It is the value of the subject matter that we have to receive from authorities, just like any scientific book. Say medical science. You can't understand medical science just by reading the books. It must be received through a medical man. Then it will be clear. Therefore, the parampara system, Arjuna said, Evam parampara. Krishna said, Evam parampara. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So it's not that it depends on the language. The same language is explaining a concept, the thought, or something that's happened.
Thank you.
But if you hear the thought directly from Krishna through the sound that is passed down through him, without changing it, without adding or subtracting thoughts, without adding or subtracting concepts, if you can grasp the concept as it's passed down, then it can awaken the clear vision, the clear understanding. And if someone changes it with their speculative reasoning, it becomes immediately imperceptible and confusing.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Okay, I have to get up early in the morning and record the Bhagavad Gita because we're on the Bhagavad Gita now. So I have to, if I keep using my voice, I may not be able to do it in the morning. So please forgive me for that.